Hi you guys, it's Sally and Josie, and if you're here, that means you want to know more about our IOD molds and our air dry clay. We are going to equip you guys with all of the tools that you need to get casting.
Oh yeah. IOD air dry clay is one that we put a ton of research into to get it just right. This is an artist quality air dry clay, so that means that unlike many of the ones you find out there, it's going to keep a higher level of detail. Let me go ahead and open it. And how important is detail when you're casting? Very important.
Very important.
So let me just show you. I've got a little spot here. I'm just going to really get that in there. Then take it out. Ooh. So you can see that looks like porcelain, doesn't it?
It does.
Just the high level of detail that it retains, and as that dries, that detail is going to remain.
And you really notice it with our molds because our molds are highly detailed.
Exactly. So they're meant to work together in that regard. It wouldn't do you a lot of good to have the high level of detail in your molds if then your clay doesn't really retain that.
That's true.
The other thing about this is you are going to have the lower level of shrinkage and cracking. And that's important because when you get your project down there, you want to see what your end result's going to be. The other thing that we really put thought into is the level of softness or firmness in the clay.
Right.
Because we know sometimes you have sore hands or maybe you have arthritis. We wanted this to be workable for anyone. So it's not so firm that it hurts your hands to really work it.
Yes, and we really like to take the suggestions and the requests from our tribe, and we got that one a lot. They wanted a clay that was nice and soft and workable.
Yeah, your needs are really important to us.
The IOD molds are one of our favorite products and one of your favorite products as well. And the reason is they are really made of high quality, food safe silicone. They have the highest level of detail of any molds on the market, and the micro rim edge, patent pending micro rim edge.
How amazing. Hold up on that thought for a second. How big of a deal is the micro rim?
Oh my gosh, everybody is talking about the micro rim edge. People are asking for it. Our molds are the only molds that have the micro rim edge, and like I said, it's patent pending. So you really, well, we'll just show you.
Yeah,
we'll just show you as we get started casting. We're going to show you how the micro rim works and how amazing it is.
Now, I'm going to talk just a sec about cornstarch.
Yes.
You do not have to use any release at all, but we find that the easier that your casting releases, the more sharp retained detail you're going to have and dimension. So I like to use a little bit of cornstarch, and just like when you're baking a cake, you don't want too much, just a little bit. And the reason I like cornstarch is because there's no chemicals, silicas, or oils that could potentially interfere with your mediums later when you paint.
Yeah.
So it's just a really pure natural ingredient, readily available, easy to use.
Just a light dusting.
Yes, just get it in there, and even all over dusting, you can see you don't have any piles of it anywhere.
Right.
If you get too much in there, a simple cake tap, just like you do, will get any excess out.
Perfect. Now I just took a small chunk off of the air dry clay. One thing you always want to remember is to put your air dry clay, as you're using it even, it will dry out quickly. So make sure you always keep it covered. Just have that plastic bag nearby, sealable plastic bag like a Ziploc. Put it in and just seal it up, okay? And then I just took a chunk off I work it, it's really soft like we mentioned, so it doesn't take a lot of working. Don't overwork it. If you overwork your clay, it has the potential to get sticky.
Yeah.
So make sure you don't overwork
Warm.
it. Just work it a little to soften it up. Get about the right amount you think you're going to need and gently press it in, covering your areas, and then here is where that micro rim shines. So just get off the excess with your thumb so you can start to see the shape of the design.
And that really
the
starts
cavity.
to pop out. The shape will actually really start to pop out because of that micro rim.
Yes. And then you can take either your thumb, which I do half of the time because I never can find my tools.
See what a clean edge it
And
gives
you can see that clean edge, and then just wait till we pop it out of the cavity as well. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful?
Yes. Me likey. Mama likey.
Okay. Just enough of that. Pull it back. There's that. And there. I'm going to talk for a minute as well about, okay, there's a little bit there. You want the back of your mold to be flush with the piece, your project that you're gluing it onto. So make sure that this is nice and flat as well. And then, so gravity's working with you, just turn your mold over and look at how easily and beautifully it pops out.
It doesn't tug, so that any tugging is going to kind of distort it a little bit, which you can still work with. But if you can get a nice, easy release using the gravity working with you, then you are going to retain your shape and your detail best.
It makes a big difference. So as I'm arranging this on this piece, Josie's going to talk a little bit about mold arrangement.
Yes, this is one of my favorite topics about casting because, as you know, we're all about not only contemporary design, but also classic design. And we believe in, as do the master artists, standing on the shoulders of those giants who came before you.
Being inspired by
being
them.
inspired by it. And so for casting, what that can mean is, you know, you can go on Pinterest or other places and find examples of awesome friezes or architecture. I mean, how much, especially like if you pull up European architecture, you've got those amazing ancient arrangements, and you don't have to reinvent the wheel. And it's a great way to teach yourself basics of composition. You can start noticing things. And we actually like to take say you find an image that you love on a wall panel, take that, print it out, and kind of dissect it into chunks and say, okay, there's a curve here I see. Well, the cavity in this mold, for example, can kind of mimic that shape. It's not going to be exact, and that's okay. You're going to take it in and kind of like building a puzzle. You're going to emulate that shape and learn in the process good design and balance.
I'm just going to interject. One of the things that I love about our mold arrangement and offering is that we have covered so many different styles and shapes that you can emulate almost anything that you find and are inspired by. You can get pretty darn close to it.
Oh yeah. So we're going to do a classical inspired arrangement here. In classical arrangements, many times you have a lot of symmetry. And we're going to, this will be no different. We're going to really use the symmetry and some classical forms to create this layout. But another way, and this has become increasingly more popular since we've been releasing our molds, is a free form style of using your castings. And there are amazing things happening. We see some of our retailers and our end user artists creating
beautiful,
these
beautiful pieces that are so inspiring.
Just beautiful.
Yes, and it kind of started a trend actually. Debbie of DIY Paints actually did this gorgeous piece,
Oh, yeah.
gobbing all kinds of layers of our molds on the piece, and it was so beautiful. And now you see everybody doing.
Immediately, we saw a
Yes.
ton of people standing on the shoulders of those who came before them
Yes,
and
being
making
inspired
more
by.
beauty.
Yes. So I'm just connecting the pieces. Also, something to mention is you can take one cavity and divide it up as well. So think outside of the box when you're doing your
Oh,
mold
yeah.
arrangement. If you see
Exactly.
a little piece and you don't see an entire, like a whole cavity that makes sense for that piece, look at a section of a piece and
Yeah.
see that you can use just part of a cavity as well.
Sometimes we call that Frankensteining.
Yes.
Taking a piece of a cavity from this and a piece of a cavity from this and putting together to make a new shape.
Exactly. All right, you guys. Typically, you would actually want to get your entire arrangement done before you start gluing so that you can see it and play around with it and get it exactly how you want it. But for the purposes of today, we are going to go ahead and just glue down what we have and move along. We like to use the Titebond Quick and Thick. This is not our product, it's just one that we really love. It's multi-surface, and what we love about it is because of the thickness, you can actually glue on a vertical surface and it's not going to start falling down on you. It's also quick.
It's
So
quick
it dries
and
quicker
thick.
as well. And it just seems like the exact right consistency. So I've already got some here measured out in my little handy tub. And I'm just using a tiny little spatula. You can use whatever you want. You can, sometimes I glue right on with the Quick and Thick. And you can see I have a little tear in my mold. And I'm not worried about it because when I glue it on, it's going to come right together and you'll never be able to tell. Go on generously with your glue. It's better to have too much than too little.
So when you say generously, would it be like butter on your toast, cream cheese on your toast?
Cream cheese.
Okay.
Very good analogy. Cream cheese, frosting maybe.
Probably royal icing as opposed to
A nice glaze.
buttercream.
Are we digressing? Okay. There we go. Don't worry about extra glue coming out. That is no big deal. Do be careful, however, when you are placing the mold, not to press or warp your mold. So
Gentle.
keep that detail nice and fine. Okay? And gently press down. You do want every surface to come into good contact with the project, okay?
Yes.
The two surfaces to come together. And then you can use your finger
Or
to just take the excess glue out, or it sounds like Josie prefers to use a brush. And there she goes, using a brush.
sorry.
Okay.
It's just so soft, but
It is.
yeah.
It is. And then you just continue to do that until your entire arrangement is glued down. Now, our favorite way to glue on molds is when they're still wet. We just find that to be the most conducive to limit warping, and because we want that contact with the back surface onto our project, that's our favorite way to do it.
Yeah, and what's cool about it is even if your surface isn't perfectly flat, so even if it's curved, you can get that good contact and it conforms best.
True, true, true.
Air dry clay inherently has a little bit of shrinking and therefore cracking if you've glued down wet. We always suggest embrace it or backfill it. And so I'm going to show you how to backfill it. However, most of the time we actually embrace it because so many times it's just adding another level of texture and visual interest.
That's true.
And we love that. But if you don't, then it's super easy to go back in after your project has already dried, take a little more of the clay itself, squinch it in there, okay? And then just using, you can use your finger or use a little tool like this.
Soft rubber spatula.
Exactly. And just backfill it like that.
Mm-hmm.
Squinch it in, backfill and kind of level it off. Super easy.
You'd be surprised once it's painted how little you notice the things that your eyes gravitate toward as you're creating the piece.
Let me do one more. Let's pick, okay, so this little crack here. Again, these are all cracks that I would actually leave, but if it bothers you, that's what's important. And so you can do it as you choose. I'm gonna squish it in there and then use this to get all the excess out of it.
Nice.
Okay, and then when that dries, you can continue on.
Wow, that's amazing.
Isn't it? Let's get that excess there. It's really, you never knew it was there. So
What
it
a
just
great
depends on what you love.
Yeah.
Okay?
Now we are going to paint our piece. We are using a mineral-based chalk style paint. There are many, many colors on the market. This is a nice soft green blue that we're using. And I'm just gonna go on. I have this cool Painties squeezy bottle that we like. They're super handy. And I'm just going to go ahead and get my paint going.
Now, there's two different ways you can go in. You can go in before your castings have dried, and if you do that, you just want to be super, super delicate and use a really soft brush so that you don't eliminate your detail. And when you're doing it that way, you want to give it a little bit, say 30 minutes to get a surface crest, and that will also help protect that detail. You can also, and if you have the time, let it dry completely. I would say you want to give it a good 24 hours if you're going to do that before it's all the way dry. And that depends on conditions. So like in super humid weather, it can be a lot longer than that. On a hot, windy type day, it can be shorter than that.
Yes. The benefit when it is nice and dry is I don't have to be careful at all with the molds. They're nice and hardened. All the detail is set. I'm not going to warp or distort the shape or design in any way.
Exactly. And so then you can even get in there and like do that type of thing.
Yeah. Push it in and really work it into the detail, which you have to be careful about when they're just slightly crusted dry. All right, we have our board painted, and you could easily stop here and have a beautiful piece. We are going to take it a step further and do a little bit of an antiquing using a color wash. There are a lot of different ways to antique. You can use a glaze, a scumble. There are a lot of beautiful antique waxes on the market that you can use. But again, we're going to use a color wash. We just mixed 1 part paint to about 3 parts water. Play around with that. It really depends on how heavy that you want to get.
And your surface. This will be pretty thirsty.
Yes. That is the other thing I wanted to mention. Just a quick tip. If you're doing a large piece of furniture that you have a lot of time investment in, you may want to consider having a sample board nearby that you can test your antiquing on so that you can see what it's going to look like. Alternatively, you could also use a backside corner of your piece. So I'm just going to go ahead and brush this on. Again, there are different ways to antique. This is just how we typically do it. And really work it into the corners. Again, it's going to be thirsty, and what that means is I'm going to go right back in with my damp cloth without doing too large of a section. But make sure you soften out those edges because you'll quickly get hard edges if you don't, okay? And then I take most of it off, okay? And getting in there and then leaving the wash inside the crevice. As that dries, it will actually lighten up as well. So I'm taking that into consideration as I move the glaze along.
The color wash.
Oops, the color wash along. Again,
look at how it
soften those
even
edges.
pops the
Oh,
texture
yes.
of the paint too.
It's one
the
of the
strokies.
Yes, one of the things we love about a chalk type or mineral-based paint is the way that you get that beautiful texture because of the thickness. Okay.
As Sally's finishing up this piece, I just want to point out, because we had mentioned earlier the cracks, embrace them or backfill them. I want to show you some examples of the cracks that we left and how cool they look, especially for this really vintagey aged piece on the seams, as well as in the individual elements themselves. They just lend to the beautiful vintage aged look.
All right, we are finished with this sample board so that you can see all of the different ways. This is, I mean, this would make a beautiful plaque, but it's just a sample board. But imagine using these molds on cabinetry, a cabinet panel, art, wall art,
Furniture,
of
small
course.
accessories, candles, candlesticks, lamps, all the things.
All the things. I also want to mention that once the air dry clay is dry, painted, and sealed, it's very, very durable.
Yes, after it's had the opportunity to cure even over time, it gets really, really hard. In fact, recently I had a piece that I wanted to redo and change it up, and I had to use a chisel and a hammer to get it off.
That's true. Speaking of possibilities, let's talk a little bit about mediums. There are so many different mediums that you can use with these molds because they're silicone. You can use a 2-part resin, a casting resin, polymer clay, earthen clays, of course air dry clay, which we showed you today. What else? What am I forgetting?
Some people use hot glue. I've never
glue.
used it, but I've seen some fabulous projects using hot glue.
Yes.
Polymer clay is the big one that you
Yes,
mentioned.
we've
There's
used
a whole
polymer clay,
world
yes.
of tutorials out there.
We
with
have a
molds.
video,
Oh yeah.
side note, of Josie making the most beautiful turquoise pieces out of these silicone molds using polymer clay. So make sure
Yeah.
that you see that. It's on
It's
our
awesome.
YouTube channel, and we have a blog post. So keyword turquoise, and you'll find that.
I'm kind of hungry. Which is a perfect segue into our sugar arts.
Okay, yes, absolutely. So, sugar arts. You can use these because they're food safe. You can
Chocolate?
use them with sugar arts. Chocolate, fondant, sugar paste. What's that white? There's a material with white, like candy molds.
Like candy melts.
Yes, candy chips that you
Yes.
melt. Candy melts, that's what it's
Yes.
called.
Pie crust.
Make sure, pie crust.
Cookie dough.
Even cookie dough. Make sure that if you're using them with foods, that you have 2 different sets
Yes.
for your crafting needs and your
Foodie
food needs.
You don't want to be using things that you've used art materials for.
Right.
in
Even
the
if you
same
wash
one.
it.
Yeah, it's better just to
Just
have a
better.
food set.
Absolutely. And that covers the mediums. And
Yeah.
we've kind of given you guys all of the tools that you need. We really love seeing how you guys take that and you think outside of the box and create all kinds of different projects and just really get artistic and have fun with these. That's why we created them, for you guys to take them
Absolutely.
and just go crazy with it.
And then wash them.
Which brings us another segue to caring for your molds. Very important. Josie,
Super
do you want to
simple.
talk about that?
Yes, it's just keep it easy with the silicone molds because it's such a durable quality material. Just simple, mild soap and water. Just warm water, mild soap. Give it a soft brush, and you're good to go. Let it dry. If you put it upside down on the towel, all the water will get out of the little dips and doodles, and you'll be good to go. The other thing is is there's very few materials that you cannot use with this. Anything you can cast with, typically you can cast with in your IOD molds.
But
However,
there are some.
there are some people who have used silicone type caulking that can actually bind and stick to and ruin your molds.
So just be cautious when
yeah,
you're
just
using a
check,
caulking.
yeah, on a caulking.
All right, you guys, you have all of the tools you need and no more excuses. You need to get yourself some IOD molds, some air dry clay, and get casting.
And
Go make something beautiful. Focus, focus. That we make.
we love the molds. We love the molds.
You're in the right place. We're really excited to just dive deep into these two products and get you.
I have my foot cramping up, but I'm gonna be fine.
We're so old. We're like, we just air banded and we're like, okay, I
My
got a
foot's-
side ache and my foot's cramping and I'm having a hot flash, but it'll be fine. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
Every time you start, I'm not ready and I'm like looking over here.
Okay, ready?
Okay, yeah, and go. I was looking to you to start.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't tell you that you were going to do that. I just